look at my cute new journal. So this setup, I used it for the past 5 years, and it's something simple but effective. I love anything to do with journals, and it has helped me a lot on my mental health journey. And this one is the three things that are important to me, not the to-do list, but what really matters. Something that you're grateful for, something that you're proud of, something that you dream of, and something that you pray for. Something to, I created this in a season where I was seeking for outside validation, and it just brought my attention back to myself. So, and I just hope that it will help somebody else as well as it has helped me. And you can find it in lifewithfrancy.com/shop. I got some cute notebooks and a planner too. So go check it out. Hello, and welcome to Life with Francie podcast, a place where you will find all kinds of conversation like mental health, self love, self care, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a place where we support one another in business and personal life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get the show started. Today's conversation was thanks to Podmatch, an amazing community for anybody in the podcasting world. They share tools and resources for podcast hosts as well as podcast guests. So if you want to be in this world, like that community is where it's at. You can find the link in the description of the episode. And on today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Dominika. She is an elite neuroencoding specialist in the world with a holistic coaching qualification, and she is a licensed as a brain coach by Dr. Ahmed, a renowned neuropsychiatrist. Her coaching approach is unique because she blends scientific knowledge about the brain with the emotional support as a life coach. I freaking love that. And I just can't wait to start the conversation with her. Welcome to the show. Tell us, what is life with you?
Well, hello, Franson, and hello to everybody who's listening. Thank you for giving me the space and allowing me to be your guest and share some of my knowledge and maybe provide you with some tools that, you get to use and make your life a better place. What is life with Dominika with Brain Coach? Well, with me as me, life is full of surprises. Not everything is planned, not everything is known. We embrace unknown and we're curious about life. With me, we also laugh and smile a lot. We go outside a lot. We take care of ourselves. We work, but not hard, but smart. We embrace the process instead of the outcome because when we do great in the process and we celebrate the daily small things, we get.
Oh, no.
Why stress about the future if we can be in the present, enjoy the present, and the outcome will come?
I love that. Thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about your story.
My story is quite complicated. So for the purpose of not boring everybody or not fascinating everybody too much, I'm just going to shorten it down. I'm Polish. I was raised in Poland and in the US and California. That's where I went to high school and junior high and a bit of elementary. And then I went back to Poland. I achieved enormous success in Europe. I was advisor to a president. I was on national committees, worked with the European Union, spoke on international stages, and I was young and miserable. I was horribly miserable, sitting and crying. Additionally, I am epileptic. So automatically, when you have epilepsy, you get automatically antidepressants. So I was my whole life on antidepressants until a certain point, which I will get to. And I realized that life cannot be what I'm experiencing. And unfortunately, I also realized, or fortunately, that the only common denominator for life was me. And that's when it dawned on me. I'm like, okay, I got to do something with me because everything is happening to me or maybe for me, like I know now, and allows me to grow. So I, went through psychologists, psychiatrists. In the meantime, I had also a death of my son who died at 16 months. I was abused. I was raped. I had a gun to my head. And at the same time, I was in media, known by everybody, very famous, recognized name, and coming home and crying. Then I got married, got divorced, had twins with my husband. The whole life experience was just not it. So psychiatry, they said, I'm not for them. because I don't have enough problems. Therapists, well, that didn't work. Psychologists, that didn't work. And I run into a coach, and this was very beginning of life coaching in the world. And she was amazing because she took what it was and reframed it in my mind. So it wasn't, I call this changing stones into feathers. See, we cannot change our past, but we can change how it feels. And that is a gift, because walking with a backpack of feathers does not stop you from achieving your goals. Walking with a backpack of stones, it sucks. So let's walk with the backpack of feathers. And with that being said, then I started exploring personal growth, reading books, getting another coach and another coach. And then I run into Tony Robbins and I started crewing his world. Then I run into all the other people. And then I run into a program run by Dr. Daniel Amen, who's a world-class neuropsychiatrist, and Dr. Joseph McClendon III, who is a neuropsychologist. And they created a program for coaches to support people, for those who maybe don't need medication yet, or will try to change their life without medication. Because the truth is that a lot of this is just our environment. Now, don't get me wrong, anxiety and brain disorders absolutely do exist, but not in the numbers that we're experiencing them. A lot of them are social construct. The sensitivity we're experiencing in this world is not because we became more sensitive. It is because we changed the perception of the world, and the identities shifted, and the need for contribution shifted, and the perception from we went to us and me. So there are a lot of things. So Dr. Amen, who works with all the NFL players and fixes their brains so they don't go absolutely mad after so many brain traumas that they experience during playing football, created a program with Joseph McClendon III, who's the head coach for Tony Robbins. And what was phenomenal is that I finally got what I love, which is science. Everything we do about neuroplasticity, about your brain, how it works, which part of your brain works, and what exercises serve which part of the brain, is based in peer-reviewed studies from all over the world, including Stanford studies, from phenomenal doctors, and they're repetitive. So there is a high chance that we got it right. Now, don't get me wrong, science evolves, so probably some of these studies will change. But for now, we're finding phenomenal results, getting rid of anxiety, depression, not all of it, some of it, depression, PTSD, anger management, trauma, procrastination, overwhelm, self-loathing, self-doubt, fear of failure, fear of success. All of these can be treated, and usually are treated, within 3 to 6 months, maximum a year, with the techniques we use. And what's amazing about it is that you later on don't need help. You don't need medication. Now, it does happen that what we do doesn't work, because no system works for everybody. There isn't one medication that works for everybody. There isn't one program. There isn't one therapy that works for everybody. And that's very important. So it might not be working. Additionally, if you add to that studies on EMDR, which is phenomenal for PTSD and trauma, it's just revolutionizing mental well-being. I wouldn't say mental health, because it's actually your brain health. That's what it is. It is your brain who is not only, it's created programs without you knowing, and associations, and then you wake up and you just live by them, but you don't realize that they can be changed. Now we know how neuroplasticity works. Now we know how neural pathways are formed. We know how brain creates those beliefs and associations, and we can reverse engineer that very often without medication. And sometimes do work with, people like me. We work with psychiatrists and psychologists or therapists. They do put you on medication, but at the same time, you work with me. So you have new skills and new tools. So when you're ready, you can get off the medication. And that is something amazing about what I do. And I absolutely love letting people go.
I love that. Can you tell us a little bit more about EMDR?
Absolutely. So a while back, about 15 years ago, they came up with this idea from bilateral stimulation and disassociation. So what it does, they notice that if you move your eyes at a certain pattern, your both hemispheres start working together and they connect. What they have also found, this can be used to separate the event from feelings. So when you go through something traumatic, in your opinion, traumatic, it doesn't have to be traumatic for somebody else, but in your opinion, it was traumatic. That event gets assigned certain emotions, and those certain emotions in your brain, by your brain, release certain chemicals. That's how you get feelings. Your feelings are not you. They're chemical releases. They're a process. They're a pattern. So what they have found with EMDR, we're able to allow you to have a memory of the traumatic event with no feelings about it. So for example, in my case, when my son was dying, one of my traumatic events, and when he died, was the sound of an ambulance and sound of defibrillator when they were saving his life in my house. And those sounds would trigger me wherever I was. I would either go into forensic crying or stop breathing or start shaking. There were biological responses to a sound. It's called a stimuli. And I'm so sorry they didn't know the technique of EMDR at that time. We didn't have science behind it. It was just being discovered. And I lived with this for 15 years. It took me 15 years not to react automatically without me planning and go into a state of fear when I heard an ambulance coming, although I knew they were going to save somebody's life. So my brain connected those two events. What we can do now with EMDR, with 6 to 12, sometimes usually 6 is the minimum sessions, we can disconnect that feeling that shows up when you have that stimulate or that thought or that feeling or whatever else triggers you, and you will remember it happened, but you can talk about it like I do freely, knowing that it's just in the past and there's no emotion around it. I can have defibrillators and I can save people's lives if I need to, and I can hear ambulances coming and nothing happens anymore. It's just an ambulance. It has no meaning. It's detached from that event. That's what EMDR does for a lot. Used for people with high PTSD. It is used for people who have been to war and have traumatic injuries and PTSD from being in the war. That's a very traumatic event where humans are not really used to feeling that much and that much pain and observe that much pain in one time and live in constant fear. So that has, a bad result on our well-being and our brain health. And with that being said, that works on a lot of people. There are other methods that can be used that we have found. There are some protocols that you can use that you can do even at home without going to a psychiatrist. And they have found that over a 6-year period, 80% of people never went back to the emotional traumatic feeling. It requires a certain things that you need to do for a month, every week or every day. And it's very uncomfortable, but they have found that the decrease in PTSD and traumatic responses and stress decreases enormously. And that is from Stanford studies. Well, not Stanford, from psychiatry. Psychiatrists use that, but not many other people know about the protocol. And you can do that at home on your own. So there are multiple ways we can help a person with a PTSD or with, traumatic events in their life or with anxiety or other things. That is so important, guys. Your brain decides how you feel, how you think, what you do, how you react, how I'm counting, even how I'm moving my hands. All of that is in your brain. We were taught to exercise for our muscles. We were taught to exercise for our heart, but we were never taught how to take care of our brain. And that is the reason why so many of us have mental health issues. And I wouldn't know, we have brain issues. It's an organ. Your organ needs help. It's not you. And I really want to stress that, because this approach allows you to take a breath that you didn't do anything wrong. Those behaviors, those thoughts, do you know that 80% of your thoughts are lies? Your brain constantly lies to you. It's incredible. And we, for some unknown reason, believe it, and we don't question our thoughts. We question everything around us, but not our head, which says the stupidest things ever. And I have those thoughts too. So I'm no original. I just know not to believe it. And of course, there are things you can do prevent that to increase the mental well-being, your brain functioning. And there are also brain types that predispose you to certain things. That can be also mitigated. And then we walk in, which I don't do, but I have enough knowledge to kind of tie it in. We have something called epigenetics. Now people say, "Oh, I'm genetically, that's my genetics." Well, yes, and you can trigger activation of a gene, or you can live the way that it never triggers. That is very important. This is in your hands. Using that as an excuse is actually your downfall. So yes, you may be predisposed, for example, to gain weight very easily. So if you have a certain lifestyle, it will trigger that gene and you'll start gaining weight
I got
uncontrollably.
that one.
But if you change your lifestyle and you are mindful about it, that gene will not express itself in its entirety. And you might be very well in the normal range, right? Which is not endangering your health. And the same thing with everything else. I'm epileptic, but when I change my lifestyle, the food, the supplements, and everything else that I do with the knowledge I have as a brain coach, I haven't had a seizure in 7 years. My
Wow.
medication went from 4,000 units a day to 500 units a day. That is a huge success. My EEG is normal, first time, and I'm 48 years old. And I had seizures since I was a baby, full grand mal seizures. They're gone. That's unheard of. And it's not that I cured myself. It is because I faced what I have. So I'm predisposed to this type of result in my brain. My brain gets overloaded, high stress, wrong food, not enough sleep, and I get seizures. So I change my life. I change how I function. I change what I eat. I change how I take care of myself. And with time, my brain repaired itself, literally, because your brain has that ability. Do you guys realize that your brain is the second organ in your body that can self-repair?
Wow.
But we just got to give it a chance.
And I'm telling you, as you was talking, my eyes like getting watery because when you said to detach from like it's not you, it's your brain. Like I said at the beginning, before the interview, now it's been a year where I'm like, okay, let me know about my brain because I am interested in other people's brain, but I had not paid attention too much to my own brain. And I love that detachment because we're so hard on each other, but with self-awareness and tools and resources, you can't change that. So how can we optimize our brain?
Well, first thing that I'm going to say is we got to be aware of things that are not serving us and not use that as an excuse, which you have done fantastically as we spoke before the show. You have faced whatever you have, your diagnoses, your beliefs, and you went, okay, this is what I have. Now, what am I going to do about it? So that's the most important step, acknowledging that, your brain is not functioning the way you want to, and you want to change, which takes work. As you know, I know everybody who's done the work, it's not easy and it's worth it. So with that being said, first thing I would highly suggest, no matter what you have, it is doing your blood work regularly. Your brain requires neurotransmitters. You need to have optimum, not norm levels of ferritin, iron, D3, potassium, magnesium, as well as your hormones, and you got to take care of inflammation in your body. Inflammation in your body has direct result in depression, anxiety, and ADHD, but it very often can be. So if you have inflammation in your body, this will result in your brain not functioning properly. Now, it doesn't have to be the reason, right? As for depression, there are billions of reasons why depression might show up. ADHD, the same thing. And very often, we got to eliminate first the simple things. And that's what I do. I eliminate the basis. So if, for example, we run you through your all tests, you go to your primary care doctor, get those tests done. If you work with me, you get a list of tests that Dr. Amen recommends. So you get to see what are your numbers. Because if your D3 is at 40, there's no way you're going to be in a good mood. If your ferritin levels are too low, or your iron is low, or your magnesium is low, there's no way you're going to be optimistic, happy, and joyful, and have no problem sleeping. Those are neurotransmitters that need to get to your brain. That's number one. Number two, that every person can do for their well-being is morning walks, preferably in a green area or just being outside in the morning. That helps to stimulate production of D3. If you're darker skin, you got to be a little bit longer. And this is now the discussion between, people who deal with skincare and people who deal with brains. We do need you to be outside without that, screen protector, because we need you to get those rays into your body. But mornings are the best. Second of all, find something that you love. Find something and make that a priority. Whatever that is, reading books, going out with friends, taking a hot bath, whatever that might be, make that a priority and non-negotiable. See, it's very hard to give if you have nothing to give and you are yearning to be filled with whatever you need. So you are the priority. You cannot serve anybody. You cannot love anybody healthy in a healthy way if you are not taken care of. And it's nobody's business and nobody's responsibility but yours to take care of yourself.
Amen to that.
So you don't make me happy, arguments should be gone. What can I do to make me happy? And the person that's with me, they enhance my happiness. That is a very, very difficult perception. Now, another thing we can do, we can start working on our perception against the world. So our world, unfortunately, is teaching us that is the I persona that is important. That's why a lot of people get offended, get hurt. It's me, I. Well, the truth is that if, let's say, I would look at you, and I don't know, those who don't see Francy, she has dark hair and dark eyes, and I would start screaming, "You're a blonde, and I hate blondes," and you'll be like, look at me like, huh? Would you have any emotional reaction to a person yelling at you that you're blonde? Mm-mm. You know why? Because you're 100% sure it's not true. So I want you to ask yourself, when people trigger you, when people make you feel uncomfortable, when you get reactive because they say you're stupid, you're dumb, you're this, you're that, how actually true are you to yourself? Because if you get triggered, that means you're not stable. You're not convinced that they're not right. That is why it puts doubt in your head. If you're 100% sure that it's not true, they can say whatever it wants. It's just going to flow like water down the drain. But if there's a tiny, tiny thing in your belief system that they might be right, that's where you start getting defensive. There's no reason to defend yourself if you know that this is not true. So that's another thing to take care of mental health. Also, everybody across the board, omega-3s for your brain. Across the board, I don't care if you have ADHD, you don't have ADHD, you have depression, omega-3s across the board, good quality. Please do not buy every omega-3 that's out there. Check the quality, check when was the last time, who's, kind of saying that this is a good omega-3. Has it been tested for the quality of omega? There are a few great omega-3s out there. Not all omega-3s have even omega-3s in them. So that's another thing. And those are basic things you can do for your brain. And one last thing, which is even more important than everything else I said, sleep. You need to be in bed and asleep on most days before midnight. 11
so
o'clock.
hard.
Well, to do that, we turn off TV, computer, phones 2 hours before bedtime, because your circadian rhythm, your brain is reading this as daylight and it's not releasing natural melatonin. If you're not falling asleep, get out of bed. Do not stay in bed. Walk around, do something. Do not stay in bed when you're not falling asleep, because your brain needs to associate bed with sleeping. Sleep is crucial for mental health. It has shown improvements exponential with no medication if you learn how to sleep. If you're a woman in perimenopause or menopause, get that freaking hormone replacement therapy and get that progesterone because you'll sleep like a baby. It helps sleeping patterns.
Mm.
So there's few things, that's where your brain crucial. That's where your brain decompresses. That's where your brain cleans out all the junk. That is when your brain puts everything in order, where it doesn't have to, work so hard on keeping you functioning during the day, talking and noticing things. This is all mental health, guys. It's so simple. And I can talk about the simple changes you can make. And guess what? Even if you can do one of these things, you'll be better off than doing none. Choose one of those things I told you and just start doing it. Make it a habit. And when it becomes natural to you, then take the other thing. And don't do it all at once. You're never going to win that way, because too many changes, your brain goes, nah, too much. And, I specialize in overwhelm as well, because I have found that my brain is also very intriguing. And when they say shoot for the stars, I'm like, no, that's too far. I'm not doing that. That's impossible for me to do. So I have found that a lot of people like me and my clients and a lot of other people out there get overwhelmed by dreams that are too big. We can dream big, but what I have found, and I train people on it, is to create activities and small wins. What do I mean by that? You will dream big, act small, and achieve success. That's the title of my book that you can find on Amazon. And what you do, you take little activities. So for example, when I want to shoot for the stars, I'll go, okay, I'll shoot for the stratosphere. I can see the stratosphere. That's a layer in the sky for those who don't remember from geography. So I go there and I'm like, oh, this is cool. I got here. Yay, let's celebrate. It's awesome. Oh, the moon is very close. Well, maybe next time I can shoot for the moon because I can see that it's not far from where I'm already at. So I increase the goal just a little bit. So then I get to the moon and I go, oh my God, all those stars. I get to choose which star I want to go to. So I actually shoot for the stars, but my goals are small along the way and I celebrate. And why is celebration so important for your brain? Because it creates new behavioral patterns and it makes you feel good. And guess what? If it makes us feel good, we want to do it again and again and again and again. And it's not challenging. So another thing you want to know about your brain is that you would love to have either dopamine, serotonin, or oxytocin release as often as possible. But there's a difference. So oxytocin is a bonding hormone. That is so important. That makes us feel connected. This is what's released when a mother gives birth to a child, etc. That's a very happy hormone, makes us feel good. And then we have those two that are opposite to each other and almost do the same thing, which is serotonin, dopamine. And most people talk about dopamine, all release of dopamine, all release of dopamine. Well, yes, and dopamine is a calm, happy hormone. That is when you're sitting with your loved one on a couch and you feel blissful and life is amazing. And it's not the hormone and it's not the chemical release that you want for action. For action, you want serotonin. You have a lot of dopamine, you will have a little serotonin. If you have a lot of serotonin, you will have a little bit of dopamine. And finding that balance in your brain and which one we want to activate when, which is possible when you learn how to work with your brain, is crucial. Because if you're too dopamine out, you're just chilled and happy and life is great. And, Netflix and chill. That's not getting you anywhere unless that's what you want to do in life and you want a whole life be Netflix and chill. Awesome. You're a happy human, go for it, no problem. And if you want some things done in your life and you have some drive, you want serotonin, but not too much, because guess what? If you have too much serotonin, then you do stupid stuff like jump off cliffs and out of airplanes, and you actually release a lot of adrenaline, which is also addicting. And all of that is in your brain. And all of that can be simplified by certain exercises, by certain behaviors, by being aware, by taking responsibility. That's something I really love about you, Franslin. You took responsibility for whatever they told you and you said, okay, How do I work with this? How do I make it better so it works for me? And that is so amazing. If you're one of those humans out there listening and you're not using your diagnosis, your flaws as a crutch and going, well, that's the way I am. That's who you took, this is what it is. If you're not doing that, you're the top 10% of the world taking responsibility. You're a gem. And Francelyn, you're a gem. You took responsibility. And I'm going to repeat that. Anybody who takes responsibility for their life and goes, this is not what I want. This is not serving me. I want something else. I want to have a happier, better, more enjoyable life. And you actually do something about it. Oh my God, I love you from the get-go.
And I love that she's speaking about my mental health evaluation and how I don't use it as an excuse. It's just facts. And even I can give examples at like work, you know, I say it all the time, like, okay, I have my mental health diagnosis. Like, I come with a warning of, like, hey, I'm doing my work, I'm doing my part, and letting you know, like, if you keep pushing, you're going to find out there's somebody else out there. But because of the work that I have done with therapy, life coaches, and well, one is specific and she was more for trauma, because that's another thing too. If you are not only the mental health diagnosis, if you have trauma as well and you haven't spoken out loud about it, that guilt and shame and responsibility that doesn't belong to you is in there. And until you can get rid of that, you can't see a lot. Because I sure felt like I could breathe once I got rid of the guilt and shame. Shame especially, oh my gosh, kept me in a horrible cycle. But it was more of learning about my brain, learning about what is happening behind the scenes for me to get more tools and resources to get where I am today. So I am loving this conversation and I can talk to you forever. Oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
It is my pleasure. And I truly believe that, look, every one of us has something to work on. If you find me a person who is perfect the way they are and there's nothing to work on, it's a miracle, because life happens for a while when we're not aware, and things just get implanted into our brain. And then we just run along with it, because at school we learn 2 + 2 = 4, but not how to self-regulate. We learn how we're, about geography, but we don't learn about our bodies. I had, when I was teaching brain health, and there is a vast difference in how brain of a female is built and a brain of the male.
Yes.
Brains have genders. I don't care how much you are progressive. Science, 49,000 brains scanned by Dr. Amen show vast differences in how those two brains are built, with number of connections, development on a general level. And can biology, for example, play a trick on us and put a male brain in a female body? Absolutely. But it's not a feeling, it's a science. We can actually, if somebody would try, we can start scanning brains and we can compare it to the results. And we can see what type of a brain that is, in most cases. And of course, nothing in life is 100%. But anyway, our brains are built differently for a lot of reasons, because we have different functions. And knowing that, for example, women have more bilateral connections, meaning connection between one and the other. That's why, although it's not healthy to do a lot of things at one time, we are perfectly okay having a kid on a hip, talking on a phone, and cooking dinner. There's no way a male brain can do
Oh
that without
no.
shutting down. And there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing bad about it. It's just, it's built differently. It's kind like getting angry that an ant cannot do the same thing as an elephant. Both are necessary. It's just they're totally different species. And so are we. And that's the beauty of it. We can embrace our imperfections and make them work for us. And often we take things from our past and we carry them to the future. And then we go, why isn't it working? Well, that kind of worked when you were 4. It doesn't work when you're 44. Tantrums, getting upset, getting angry, the need for being right. This is all in your brain. That's your basal ganglia working. That is your anterior cingulate getting stuck. Those are different parts of your brain that we can now target and change how they function when you do the work. I'm going to underline this, that no therapy, no coaching, no psychiatry, besides taking medication that only masks the symptoms. Everything requires work. You've repeated things over and over for years. It's not one conversation that's going to change everything. Yet, oh, okay, I'm going to invite all of you. It's going to change your life, I promise. I want every one of you, please don't do it if you're driving or doing anything crazy right now. But when you're home or when you're in a public place and you're alone, you don't need to be around people. I want you, that's level one, go to the mirror and give yourself a high five and smile and say, Dominika, I love you. Or, well, you can say Dominika if you're Dominika, but please, Francy, use your name, okay? And what happens there, we're programmed by society, and we're going to use it to our advantage. What happens when you give somebody a high five? Think about it.
Yeah, you get
You
excited.
smile.
Yeah.
And guess what? When you smile, you release all the happy chemicals. So it makes you feel good. You can do that to yourself, and looking into your eyes saying, I love you with your name will feel super weird. And it will start building feeling of comfort with who you are. Level two, you do it naked. So then you don't do it in public places. You do it at home. And you know how many women I found are having they get used to the fact doing that, in person when they're dressed in the bathroom, giving each other high fives, smiling, feeling better, saying, I love you. The moment they are undressed, all their insecurities just flush. And they have a problem looking at themselves. And that's where we start. We start with loving us the way we are. Nobody's perfect. Remember, you're meeting people at a snapshot of their life. It's just a tiny snapshot. You don't know what was before, what was after. Maybe today she spent $200 to look gorgeous, but on daily basis, she has a ponytail and she's wearing raggy clothes. Maybe she's smiling because she was taught by society to smile. Maybe that success is not as successful doing in the past, that I'm this amazing human that has it all. I was the most miserable woman you can imagine. I was frustrated. I was angry. I was snappy. I was depressed. I was laying in bed crying night after night. And then I would get up and go and smile. So remember, we're just humans and we are so beautifully imperfect. I have this thing when I meet people. So I literally tell that to myself. I'm like, I'm curious what that person can teach me. That way, I'm coming in as a person eager to learn from you and interested in you. That changes every interaction I have. There's so many little tiny things you can do for your brain to make your world a better place. And when you're happy, guess what? Depression is contagious. Anger is contagious, but so is happiness. Encode happiness and success in your DNA.
I just did it the other day. We were having a rough morning, and I called her the boss lady, and she looked at me, and I just gave her a smile. I mean, it was simple. I make eye contact, I give you a smile. They're for free, so. And
Yes.
she looked back, and she just said, "Thank you so much for smiling at me." I said, "I know it's a rough morning, but we got this." And the whole demeanor changed and everything because my coworkers were not being as nice. But it's just a simple smile. To me, it's just like it comes natural, but for other people, like, it can change, and it's the same thing because of the anger. Now that's one of my issues, is anger issues, and mine, there was like, he was talking about it like, this is not for normal people, this is for other people. And then there was Francy anger, and I was like, whoa, well, nobody needs to be Francy angry. But it's just a cycle of my environment at work. It was anger, so it's easy to be like, oh, this happened, that happened, so I have a reason to be angry.
Well,
And anger too is a second emotion. So there's always something hidden. For me, it's vulnerability. If I feel vulnerable, I'm going straight to anger. Somebody has to get hurt because I feel vulnerable.
So vulnerability is actually still an underline. So
Oh,
vulnerability is
it's
a
still
fear.
another one.
It's fear. It's
Fear.
fear of rejection.
Yes.
And that fear of rejection usually is fear of not being loved, if we go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So there are beautiful ways. So one of the things you can use, and I invite everybody to use that practice, is when you come home and somebody asks you, how was your day? Or you ask yourself, how was my day? And your reaction is, it was awful. I had an awful day. Then question your brain. Go, okay, so when was it awful? So your brain starts searching for information. Well, in the morning, somebody yelled at me. Okay, anything else was awful? Well, no. Okay, how long did they yell at you for? Well, about 10 minutes. Okay. And how long were you uncomfortable or felt discomfort after they yelled at you? Well, for about an hour. So are you telling me that an hour and a half of your day makes 16 hours a bad day? No. I had a great day besides an hour and a half. That was awful. And your brain automatically changes the chemical release into your brain. You need to start questioning your thoughts. Your thoughts are lies, and your brain, everybody's brain, not only yours, mine too, everybody's in the world is built to generalize. What
Yes.
does that mean? It generalizes because when it does that, it conserves energy. And it is built to conserve energy. And it's supposed to protect you from the dangers that are coming. So when you learn to stop the generalization and make it specific and precise, it turns out you have a pretty awesome life.
It's all about perspective.
Yes. And I hope that exercise will be very helpful.
I love it. And I told you mine are like 15 to 30 minutes, and I'm sure we passed the 30 minutes, and I'm loving it over here. I could talk to you forever. But is there anything else that you would like my listeners to know?
Well, I'm going to go back to the book that I wrote and just came out in January, and I know we're a few months in. But if you're struggling with overwhelm or anxiety or inability to be joyful and you're experiencing kind of the frustration, that book is short, sweet, and just for you. And it has only 64 pages with multiple examples, with worksheets that you can download, and with practical exercises to change how your brain works with a lot of neuroscience in it, but in a very easy, adaptable way. So the magic of dreaming big and acting small and achieving success, it's a good read, and you can read it in an hour or you can read it for a month, depending how much you want from it.
I love that. I'm definitely going to check that out. And I love that it has exercises as well. Where can my listeners find you?
Well, you can go to my website, yourbraincoachd.com. You can find me on Instagram, Your Brain Coach D, and you can find me on Facebook, Your Brain Coach D. I'm quite easy to find, and you can email me at yourbraincoachd@gmail.com. So I'm here to support you guys, and I'm excited to share my knowledge, and I hope you take just one thing and make your life a better place.
I love that. And this year I started asking, what are you grateful for? Oh no, you froze. There you
Transformation.
go. The what?
For my transformation. And I'm grateful for the fact that I am able now to receive and enjoy daily little things instead
Mm.
of thinking about the big world change and things that are overwhelming. I enjoy the present moment. And that took me about 11 years to learn. So I'm super grateful that I finally got to the place where I'm able to do that consciously.
Oh, I love that. I'm a brand new on the receive part because I'm a giver. So it's like I see anything, I'm like, oh, I think about this one and that one and the other one. But if somebody does that to me, I'm like, oh no, I'm uncomfortable. What am I supposed to do now? I have to do something for you. So I'm brand new on the receiving end. I love that. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And share your wisdom.
It was my absolute pleasure. Thank you. And I hope you encode happiness and joy and success in your DNA, and you'll just thrive day by day, and it's going to get better and better until you cannot even imagine how amazing your life can be.
I love that. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Life with Francie podcast. You can find it in all podcast major platforms as well as my YouTube channel. Like, you know the drill, like and subscribe, help this girl out. And the guest information will be in the description of the episode. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.